Summers are here, and all of us want to know whether we should use air conditioner or cooler for the kids, what temperature we should set it in, how many clothes should my child wear in summers, how do I actually check if my small baby is feeling hot or cold, what should a child wear if they are having fever, how much fluids do kids need, and if your child is school going, how to prevent them from suffering from headaches, heat exhaustion. Want to know all of this and more? Keep listening.
Welcome to your Personal Child Specialist podcast. Don't you wish that children came with their own instruction manual? We know they don't. But how about getting the next best thing? By having your common parenting and children's health questions answered by Dr. Gaurav Gupta, MD from Charak Clinics, India.
Today, I have a very special guest with me, a very senior pediatrician from Chandigarh, Dr. Jyotsna Sachdeva. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, Gaurav. Nice to be on your show.
Ma'am, it's been a long time coming. मैं बहुत टाइम से आपको motivate कर रहा था to be on the show, and it's really nice to have you finally.
Thank you, Gaurav.
So let's straight away start with the fact that suddenly April May Chandigarh has become so hot. It feels like mid-May, and obviously kids are suffering. So before we go on to their problems, let's just figure out a few things what parents want to know. Let's start with the commonest question. Should we use a cooler or an air conditioner with my small baby?
So basically, we can categorize this into like say a small baby and an older child. So what parents need to know that young babies find it very difficult to regulate their temperature. So their thermostat is not effective. So what happens if the room is very hot, they will get overheated, and if the room is cold, they will get hypothermic. So essentially both extremes, that they get overheated in summer and they get chilled in winter. So therefore their room temperatures, we have to be more particular what we are maintaining, and definitely in these kind of temperatures some kind of cooling is needed. And usually recommended room temperature is between 23 to 26 is what is a recommended room temperature. And if you are using these temperatures, then this is a thermoneutral zone and the baby is comfortable in this temperature. Now sometimes parents may say that we don't have a room temperature, and how can we be sure that is this the temperature we are maintaining? So here one can use what we call as the touch technique to sort of figure out if our baby is comfortable or uncomfortable. So you touch three areas: the hand, the trunk, and the face and the scalp. So the hands and feet of the baby can be cool, but they should never be chilled. And the tummy should always be warm. It should not even be cool. And if the baby has a flushed skin and baby has beads of sweat on the forehead and the back of the scalp is wet, that means our baby is getting too warm. So we can use this parameter also to judge. And generally we say that it should be a comfortable temperature for an adult. They should neither be cool or for an average adult, that should be a comfortable temperature. You should also not be sweating in that room. Another thing, like parents may say, okay, now what do we use? Do we use a cooler, or do we use a AC, or do we use just a fan? So sometimes this is a matter of personal choice, budget, everything. Every modality has some advantages and some disadvantages. So if you are using a fan, definitely you are not able to cool the room to that extent as you would if you were using a cooler or a AC. So in that situation, you have to make sure there's adequate ventilation and you're not covering the child too much. So in that situation, the baby may just need a single layer of clothing. So when we talk of coolers have an advantage that they are more economical. Every family may not be in a position to afford air conditioning. And cooler has another advantage that it maintains the moisture in the room, unless of course it is monsoon where it becomes over sticky. And coolers cool the room, but they don't chill the room, which can happen in case of air conditioning. So whereas the advantages of air conditioning are that in air conditioning you can set a particular temperature. which may not be possible with a cooler. And the air which you are providing to the child with the air conditioner is cleaner and purer than what you might do with the cooler. So in the cooler, there are factors like, did you change your water? Did you change your pads regularly? Otherwise, you may be blowing in germs into the room with the cooler. But the disadvantages of an air conditioner are one that it's of course expensive, and air conditioners can get very, very dehydrating. They rob the child of moisture, so you have to make sure that room is hydrated, your child is hydrated, and sometimes one needs to lubricate the nasal passage in order to see that the mucous membranes are not becoming too dry. So you can use any modality of cooling as per your personal choice, keeping these points in view. And when you are using a cooler, it is advisable that you keep some window open so that you are allowing fresh air to come in. And in monsoons, cooler is not that good an idea, but if the family only has a cooler, then in the monsoons they should be using it without the wall.
Excellent. I think very, very comprehensive. आप सब कुछ use कर सकते हो. I think everything works, but air conditioning is probably much more controlled. And in cooler, I think one good thing which air conditioning also does not have, I would say, is that the ventilation part. Because in a AC, you are making sure that the room is totally shut. So I believe if somebody is coughing or somebody is having a cold or some fever, and the room is not ventilated because it air condition chal raha hai, so maybe that might also be a negative part for air conditioning.
Yeah, definitely that if one person is ill, everybody in that room will
got it.
That is definitely so.
True.
And another important point one needs to keep in mind that usually what will happen that you will be, unlike say maybe in the West or now also in certain modern Indian homes where you may have the whole house which is cooled or air conditioned. Mostly what happens is that you make one room very cool, but the rest of your house is warm. And if you are also going to go out, there's going to be a very drastic change in the temperature to which the child is exposed. So it is very important that there should not be a sudden transition, because sudden transitions, especially babies and even older children, you take time to adjust to a higher temperature. So when you are going either way, from a very hot room to a cool room or a very cool room to a hot room, certain things should be kept in mind. That it is advisable that when you are leaving an air conditioned room, stay in that room where the air conditioning turned off for at least 10 minutes, so that the child gets adapted to a slightly warmer temperature and then move out. And vice versa, when you come from outdoor, the child has come from playing or from school, do not immediately put on air conditioning as soon as the child enters the house. Let him sit in that room temperature for about 10-15 minutes and then switch the AC on, because this gives the body time to adjust to the sudden change in temperature.
ऐसे में जो ज्यादा इंटेलिजेंट बच्चे होते हैं मैम, वो फ्रिज खोल के खड़े हो जाते हैं ठंडी हवा खाने के लिए.
I think when they come from school, they are hot and sweaty and they want instant cooling. But one should just take a few minutes break before suddenly turning on the air conditioning.
I think the cooler AC fan part is absolutely clear now. I'm sure मैम आपको भी OPD में बच्चे regularly parents आके पूछते होंगे, is my child appropriately dressed for this weather? And how do you answer that question for small babies and for older kids?
So basically here I would just make it into two broad categories: children under 2 years and children over 2 years. Children under 2 years need one layer more than you, whether it is summer or winter. So say if it is summer, they will wear a vest and they will wear another layer. Whereas in an older child, they wear as much as you. Unfortunately, what happens that parents all the time feel child needs more clothing than us, we must give them an extra layer. That is only true if they are under 2 years. So they should wear as much as the parent over 2 and one layer more when they are under 2. And what they wear is also very important. That in summer one should stick to cottons, and your clothes should be loose and airy. And why cottons? I think most of us would know that because cotton absorbs sweat, so it takes the sweat away from the body, and then when the sweat evaporates from your clothes, it causes cooling. So it helps to regulate the temperature. And secondly, why should the clothes be loose and airy? So that the air can circulate between your body and your clothes and again help in cooling. And thirdly, also when we are using cottons, in summer it is preferable to choose light shades. Not necessarily white, children will make their whites black in no time, but use lighter shades because going by the principle of science that dark colors absorb more heat and light colors reflect light. So basically, if they are wearing lighter colored clothes, they'll be cooler in summer. So that's a small tip again parents may want to keep in mind in the summer.
Very, very practical, simple, easy to follow suggestions.
Digressing from this point,
Sure.
One point for ACs and coolers, I just forgot to mention, which I'm adding here, that it is advisable that the direct blast should not hit the child. Whether it's the cooler or the AC, you should direct the fins towards the roof so that you're cooling the room, but the cold blast doesn't hit the child. So that's another small point which can be kept in mind.
Thank you. Thanks. I think very important. Okay. So we are talking about children who are healthy, but nowadays we are seeing so many kids who have fever. Parents are always confused what to do as far as clothing is concerned. अगर बच्चे को बुखार है, क्या उसको रजाई में ओढ़ के रख दो या क्या उसको नंगा होके पानी में डाल दो? What do you say to them, ma'am?
So again, during fever, it is very important that the child be in comfortable cotton clothes. And say at lower temperatures, say, like for parents, even 100 is a high temperature. But in lower temperatures, you need not remove the clothing, but you need to keep the environment cool. There is a general tendency कि बच्चे को fever है, इसको ठंडी लग जाएगी, turn off the fan, turn off the AC. It's the other way around. That we want the child to lose heat to the environment. Room should be cool and the clothes should again be cotton and airy. And it is only in temperatures which are over 103 where we may want to sort of strip the child and do some sponging over the body. And when you are doing sponging, another very important thing, most parents after seeing say movies and what they hear from others is that tend to use ice cold water and will use a little strip of water on the forehead. So what they need to know that cooling 2 inches of such a big body is not going to help at all. So the water does not have to be cold at all. It has to be water at room temperature. In fact, they say that water can be even at up to 50 degrees, the comfortable temperature for the body. And you need to sponge all over the body. Like take water in a tub and you take a few small towels and dip it in water and squeeze the water out and then rub the body all over and giving preference to certain areas from where there is more heat loss. That is the groin, like between the thighs, under the armpits, in the neck fold. So these areas, the cooling is more. So sometimes we say roll a little towel, put it under the armpits, put it by the side of the neck. This causes more cooling. And cooling, you are not doing sponging to bring the temperature to normal. You are only doing sponging to bring the temperature to a safe level. So normally we say that if your body temperature comes below 102, you could stop the sponging for that child. Another very important aspect is that when you are having fever, your body needs more fluid. It is like to see, say in a car, when your engine heats up, you need more water. So you need more water than normal when you're having fever. So during fever, you must ensure that the baby or the child is having lots of extra fluid and you are keeping a watch on the urine output. So that is also to be kept in mind during fever.
We come into the fluid very, very shortly. But before that, parents say कि अगर हम बच्चे के कपड़े उतार देते हैं, if we remove the clothes, then the child tends to say मुझे ठंड लग रही है and he sometimes starts to shiver. So what do we do in that case?
So basically, shivering normally happens when the fever is rising. So see, one reason for shivering is that if you're obviously using very cold water, the baby will shiver. So in fact, what happens that if you use very cold water, you may actually raise the body temperature, because if you use very cold water, the child will shiver because of the cold which he is being exposed to, and his body temperature will actually go up instead of going down. So that is paradoxical and the parents must know this. So second, shivering would happen when the fever is rising. Now in that situation, for a short period, you may need to cover the child because feeling uncomfortable. But as soon as the fever spikes up and the shivering stops, then you will do the same thing, that cut down the layers.
To be honest, there is always something which I learn जब भी मैं आपसे बात करता हूँ. It's always a learning experience, and I'm sure many pediatricians will also be picking this up. You were talking about the fluids, ma'am. So I wanted to know, of course, fever में तो fluids बढ़ाना ही है, but otherwise, how much fluids does a child need, and how does a parent know कि बच्चे का fluid intake ठीक है कि नहीं है?
So basically, the fluid intake depends on a lot of things. The age of the child, what is the temperature like outside, the weight of the child, whether it's a well child or it's an ill child. But sort of as a generalization, I'll just tell you a few points. That in the first 6 months, if the baby is totally breastfed, there is no need to give any extra water. And this is a common question which parents ask in this summer, in this heat, when the temperatures are 40 degree plus, that can't we give extra water to the baby? And what I do explain to them is that milk is 80% water. And I give them an example कि आपने अगर कभी दूध फटते हुए देखा है तो वो थोड़ा सा ही solids निकलता है, the rest of it is all fluid. So your baby is getting that much fluid into their body, and if they feel thirsty, they will just take an extra breastfeed. So you don't have to give them water when they are totally breastfed. However, in formula-fed babies, they can sometimes start getting constipated, and in spite of change of formulas from one brand to another, they may continue to be constipated. So this is an exception where you can give water under 6 months of age if a formula-fed baby is getting constipated. So then next we'll move to the next range is 6 to 9 months. Since the baby is weaning and you are introducing vegetables, you are giving vegetable puree, you are giving fruits, so you are bringing in additional water. So if your baby is not constipated and passing adequate urine, you may not give water. But if you are giving water up to 9 months of age, about 4 ounces or roughly about 120 ml water is what is recommended. And then when we move to the 9 to 12 months age group, there we say that you could give up to, it should be within 8 ounces. That's about 220 ml. And when you move to the next category, which is 1 year plus, 1 year plus should take a minimum of 8 ounces or 220 ml, and it should not exceed a liter. So this is up to about 2 years of age. And then we move up to 4 years of age. Then, like since older children, you are measuring with cups and glasses. So normally we say a child up to 4 years of age, the water intake is 2 to 4 cups a day is what you, not this, I wouldn't say water, sorry, that's wrongly worded by me, fluid intake. So up to 4 years of age, it is 2 to 4 cups. When you move from say 5 to 8 years, it's about 5 cups of water. When you're moving from 9 to 13, it is 7 to 8 cups of water. And above 13, say like above 13, then you're like an adult. Then it is about 9 to 11 cups of water. So that is how it goes. And again, you may ask me, when they are ill, how much more water do they need, or they are dehydrated, or they are ill. Now for this, there is no fixed amount, because if the child has very high fever, his requirement may be more. If his fever is just 100, his requirement may not be more. And even simple cough and colds, because of mouth breathing and coughing and loss of fluids in that, even without fever, children can get dehydrated in illnesses. So a general dictum is that watch out for the urine out. So if your child is passing urine once in 6 hours, they are getting enough fluids. So if it is 8-10 hours and the baby is not passing fluids, then obviously means you need to hydrate them more. And if you allow me, I would also just want to make a little mention about what are the kind of fluids you should be giving a child. So water continue, and when I mentioned this intake, this is not just for water, this is your fluid intake. So fluid can be other fluids also. And so there are certain fluids which are very good for children, then certain others which are permissible, and then there's certain other category which is a big no-no, which you should, as a conscientious parent, make sure that you are not giving your child. So of course water continues to be the best possible drink you can give your child, and followed then by milk. And then other fluids which you can give to your child liberally is something like a nimbu pani or a aam panna or a lassi or a coconut water. These are all permissible fluids. Now juice is another fluid which parents are very, very fond of giving. So again, with juice, I would like to spend a little more time that normally they say that younger babies especially do not give them juice, because what you're doing in the juice, you are extracting all the sugar from the fruit and giving to the child. So you're giving them very sugary solution, which is giving them a lot of calories, though of course it is giving them some vitamins and minerals also, but you're giving them sugar and calories. So it is recommended that in under 1 year, juice should be avoided. It can only be, it is preferable to give a fruit pulp, and not to give juice. And if at all you are wanting to give baby some juice under 1 year of age, it has to be diluted 8 to 10 times with water. So basically what you're doing, you're giving water flavored with juice and you're not giving juice. Then when we move to the next category, which is say up to 2 years, there also your juice should be half strength, 50% water and 50% juice. Then the next category is up to 6 years of age. So up to 6 years of age, the upper limit for fresh juice for a child, natural juice, is about 180 ml. And up to 12 years, this goes up to 360 ml of juice. So this is the restriction on juice. It should not be used as your primary fluid. And some fluids are a big no. Fizzy drinks should not be given to children. It's just giving them extra calories, spoiling their teeth. Sport drinks should not be given to young children. If you have an older child who is doing some very exhaustive sport and soccer, there it may be an exception that you might want to give him a sport drink. That should not be given. And energy drinks is a big no for children. Like Red Bull and all should absolutely be avoided for children. They have, of course, they have sugar. Then they have caffeine, which is a stimulant. And also with these energy drinks, you pass more urine. So you actually, instead of getting hydrated, you may actually get dehydrated. So this is just something I wanted to tell about the various liquids which you should and should not give to your child when you are deciding what they should drink.
Thank you. This is very extensive. Couple of things जो मेरे दिमाग में भी आपसे बात करते करते आए. One is about some people use ORS after extreme exercise for kids. Does that make any sense, ma'am?
So basically, it certainly doesn't harm, because you do sweat and you do lose a lot of electrolytes. So, like say when you have diarrhea dehydration, you should not be using drinks other than which are ORS or ORS-like. But if you are using ORS in other situations, it doesn't harm the child. Though personally, I am more in favor of giving homemade drinks like that. You give them nimbu pani with little additional salt or sugar or lassi or coconut water, but it can be given. That getting in fluids is very important. So, say if the baby likes if the child likes the ORS better than he likes his nimbu pani, it's okay, because our main idea is to hydrate him. So that can be done.
Fair enough. And something which is a little uncommon, but have you had experience of children overhydrating themselves? I mean, I used to see this during COVID time when kids used to just keep on going to the kitchen, take a few sips of water, then go to the toilet, pass some urine and then go back. So is this something which you have noticed?
A few cases, especially people who give babies or young children water with a bottle. So those children tend to overdrink because they're using the nipple, so larger amounts go in. So you have to keep a watch on the amount of water your child has, and especially in a young child, because sometimes what happens, they have such large volumes that they are filling their tummy with water, so they are going to skip a meal or have a small meal because they have over distended their stomach with water. So this is one aspect. That's why for younger babies they say that don't give them very large volumes of water. And even for younger babies, those who are bottle fed also, they say that when you introduce water, try not to use a bottle, use a sippy cup or a cup, so that they can not take large volumes of water. So in children, I think water intoxication is not that common, but you have to take care where if the child is a habitual water drinker and having large volumes, you can have water intoxication and electrolyte imbalance. So that's why when I mention these quantities of water which a child should have, now these are safe limits. So as far as possible, one should try to stick to these limits when we are deciding the amount of fluids a child is having.
I am having conversation with Dr. Jyotsna, who's a senior pediatrician from Chandigarh, and she's really passionate about parent education. Last question coming up, ma'am, from my side at least. A lot of kids have started school after 2 years now, and they are suffering from what I would say is something like a heat exhaustion. They come back, they're having headaches, and they're just not feeling well. So what would you suggest to parents to reduce this kind of a problem?
Actually, unfortunately, children have gone from no school to such long hours of school that I actually don't blame them for feeling exhausted and tired and almost ready to sleep. I've had parents saying that the child is half asleep by the end of the school session because they get so tired. So all these things which we have discussed before will come into play even this, that make sure that you are sending your child to school with adequate amount of fluids with them. And if possible, they could have 2 bottles, one with plain water and one with some salt sugar like a nimbu pani, which gives them some amount of salt and sugar and takes care of the electrolyte. So again, see now, hopefully schools do take into consideration that children's summer clothing should be cotton and little airy. You cannot go against uniform of the school. So if your school uniform is synthetic, then one thing you could do is that the child could at least wear a cotton vest inside, so that what touches the skin is cotton, even if their uniform is terracotta, or because what I see, they are not necessarily cotton. They are, because cotton is a difficult to maintain fabric. So I've seen that a lot of school uniforms will have a shirt or a skirt or a pant which has some element of synthetic in it. So one could, the child could wear a cotton undershirt so that it's helping in sweat absorption. Secondly, if the child is walking to school back and forth or going by cycle, then it is advisable that they can wear a floppy cap so that they are cutting out direct sun hitting their face and their body. Their hydration should be well maintained. Their tiffin should be nutritious, and it would also be a good idea to include foods in their tiffin which will give them some extra fluid. And here would be the role of, say, cut cucumber or tomatoes or fruit, because this is then will also give them some extra hydration. And in situations where parents are picking up children from the school, I would suggest that when they are taking the child, if they take a drink from home or take a small snack from home which the child can have on the way back, that would also keep them energized and hydrated. So these would be a few tips.
So ma'am, from my side, I have covered about summer clothing, and you have covered the summer fluids as well. Is there anything that you want to add that we may not have discussed till now?
I think pretty much we've covered everything, nothing coming to my mind as of now. And maybe when your parents write back comments, they may have some questions which have remained unanswered, which you can take up in some of your subsequent talks.
It was really nice. As usual, any conversation with you, it's very enjoyable and always a learning experience. Thanks for being on the show, ma'am, and I would love to have you again pretty soon.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for having me.